Ready, Ange?
I'm ready right now.
Okay, good. Let me fix all the things, get us lit and all the things. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Black to the Future Action Fund's Sunday conversation about why Governor Gavin Newsom needs to appoint a Black woman with our values to Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's empty Senate seat. I'm here with Angela Rye from Impact Strategies, my sister. How are you?
Hi, sis. I'm good. I'm so happy to be talking to you in front of the people. And it's not just us.
Yeah. Exactly, because we do a nice kiki every so often. Well, I'm really excited. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is an important discussion, especially as we begin the pivot towards the beginning of 2021. What we know is that we just had a historic election where Black communities and movement and people all over this country, a lot of whom had never participated before, really pushed this campaign over the edge. And it wasn't necessarily because everybody was like, Joe Biden's the best. It was because, right, we wanted to have a better set of options moving into the future. And what we knew was that what we were working with wasn't going to get us there. So now that we pushed that boulder over the mountain, and now we have a number of choices in front of us. Of course, President-elect Joe Biden is making a whole series of appointments for his cabinet. We're going to talk about that another day because we're going to need a whole live for that, child. It's a separate one. But what it means is that in this historic election, we now have a vice president who, for the first time, child, is a woman, a Black woman, and an Indian woman all at the same time. It's incredible. She is the illustrious Kamala Harris, who hails from Oakland, California.
Oaktown 357 in the building.
That's right. And so now her seat in the Senate is vacant. And as you know, Angela, she was the only Black woman in the entire U.S. Senate. So here's what I learned over the last couple of weeks, because, sometimes we got to do government 101, right? So in the United States Senate, there are 100 members.
Yep.
Okay, you check me on this because, there's 100 members in the U.S. Senate. Of those 100 members, only 26 are people of color.
We got 26. Who are the 26 people of color?
Of the 26, child, there are 4 women of color. 4.
Duckworth, Kamala. Who's the other 2?
Come on, there's more.
I'm trying to figure out who the 26 people of color are. Maisie.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. No, let me run it back. 26 women.
Yes, that's right.
There's 26.
I was like, now we did. That's good. I don't know who those are people.
26 women.
Yeah. Maisie.
4 women of color. And only 1 Black woman, child.
Who is the 4th one? It's Maisie, Kamala, Tammy. Who's the other one? Anyway, okay. Anyway, that's not enough.
It's not enough. That's the whole point. And right now, girl, Gavin Newsom is making decisions about who he's going to appoint into this seat. And for me, I'm like, this is obvious, right?
Yeah.
Obvious. But talk to me a little bit, Angela. What are the things that you think the governor should be weighing at this moment as he's deciding who to appoint to that seat?
The one thing we know, not just about Kamala being the only Black woman representative in the Senate, but what we know about every Black elected official in Congress, period, is they represent more than just their congressional district. Their constituency is broader because they carry a different burden, just like we all do if we go to work in corporate America, or we all do because we are activists or organizers, or we all do because we're teachers in classrooms at every level. And so what that means is he doesn't get to make the normal privileged decision that he would normally get to do as a white man. He has to take into consideration representation that goes beyond California. Yes, he took an oath to California, but given the state of the country and given what we're facing, it would be so irresponsible for him to appoint someone who is not a woman of color, who is not a Black woman right now. We cannot afford to lose the only Black woman's voice we have in the Senate. And if you are in a position and you call yourself progressive and for the people, this is your opportunity to prove it, you know. Javier Becerra was what many would call an obvious choice, but now that he's going to be the incoming HHS secretary for the president-elect, who else we talking about?
Okay. Yeah. Well, one of the things that really struck me, and I've been watching this over the last couple of weeks, and there's all these names that have been floating around, names that apparently the governor is considering. And one thing that struck me was that he is apparently choosing from a whole list of men. And that really hit me in my gut, sis, because look, I think every woman in America knows what it's like to not be considered for a position that you are highly qualified for. You have at least two highly qualified Black women who are already serving in Congress, and they are from the state of California, and they were not on the short list yet for consideration for appointment. So can we just talk a little bit about that? Because it's no shade to Alex Padilla, right? He's the Secretary of State, great guy. But what is at stake here when we are looking at this seat that is now become vacated, and yet we're not looking at least two women, Black women who are highly qualified from the state? We're choosing from a list of men. What's that about?
Yeah, I mean, I understand from a number standpoint why there would be a conversation about, we need someone Latinx in that seat, given California's demographics. I get that. But it's pretty doggone irresponsible for it not to be a Latinx woman. And I think most importantly, the voters spoke pretty clearly in 2016 about Kamala Harris. There was no competition. And to be frank, she was running against a Latina, Loretta Sanchez, who actually served in Congress and made a major fumble by making fun of Kamala's Indian heritage. Of course, not even understanding what kind of Indian, not indigenous, but East Indian, right? So I'm just saying she just didn't even know. Now, that is not to be put at the feet of every other, dope Latina who could run in that seat. But it is to say that voters made a choice. And I would also just say, Dianne Feinstein, maybe it's time for her service to come to an end, and there should probably be a real election around that. However, there are some people who are abundantly qualified for the seat, to your point. One is a former chair of the Black Caucus on the Appropriations Committee in House leadership. That's, of course, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who endorsed Kamala in the primary. And the other would be Karen Bass, who is the current chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, current subcommittee on Africa chair in Congress, incredible, history-making first Black woman speaker of the California State Assembly. There's no, find me a resume that looks remotely like either of them. I really don't understand why we're having this conversation.
Yeah. Well, look, here's my take on this, because there's been some rumblings here and there about exactly what you said, that, California is approaching 40% in terms of demographics of Latinx folks. And I actually want to be super clear. I think there's room for all of us. And
I do too.
It's really shameful when we start to get into a conversation about either ors when it should be a both and.
Yeah.
And the argument that we have been making here is that we actually need more Latinx folks in the Senate that represent our values. And we need more Black folks in the Senate that represent our values. And frankly, not appointing a Black woman with our values to this Senate seat. It's not just about having a Black woman. It's really about making sure, right, that the US Senate has Black people in it at all. And especially when, right? Especially when we know that it is Black voters who really helped to push this campaign over the finish line. It is Black voters, certainly, who frankly showed up and showed out, but also it is Black communities across this nation that certainly need to be represented at the highest levels of government, especially because of the disparities that our communities are facing.
Yeah.
And one thing that I would love to see, right, is a unified chorus that says, none of us will be satisfied with the United States Senate that doesn't have a Black woman in it. And one is not enough.
Yeah. How about that? How about that?
We're going to keep pushing together to make sure that the United States Senate represents this country, which is now majority people of color. So I want to ask you another question, Ange, because we got to kind of dive into these two Black women who are incredibly qualified.
Catherine Cortez Masto, that's the other one in Nevada. I was gonna find it out. It was driving me. I was like, who is the fourth one?
I knew you were gonna find it, girl. So let's talk, Karen. Let's talk Congresswoman Karen Bass and Congresswoman Barbara Lee. You know, we've talked a ton about their service. We've talked a ton about their values, but I really want to dive into this so that people get a real sense of who these women are. I mean, talk to us a little bit about your perspective of their legislative records, but also how they govern. I think that is something that's important when considering somebody for a major seat such as this. What's your experience with Congresswoman Lee and Congresswoman Bass?
Well, let me start with Congresswoman Lee. She is, I don't know anybody who works harder than her. Like she is a former Hill staffer. She loves to talk about having worked with Shirley Chisholm. She is an incredible fighter, not just for Black people, but for everybody who's been marginalized. Man, I can tell you, I had this experience of going to visit a federal women's prison with Miss Lee. And the way that she tells her personal story of survival and raising her children and still doing all of that while trying to advocate on behalf of all of us is just incredible. And so the compassion and the empathy that she takes to the pen to actually develop legislation that changes our lives is just, it's just unheard of. I love her very much so. And I love that to this day, she still thinks I work on the Hill.
Yes. It's probably,
she gives me all the homework.
Yes, I'm sure, because she knows she needs you.
With Congresswoman Bass, who actually she prefers Congress member Bass, or Miss Bass or Representative Bass. So let me get that right. What I love the most about her is how accomplished she is, and she's so humble. She gets it done. She is absolutely in the weeds on things, trying to make sure it's our very best. I think in particular to how diligent she was around justice and policing, and even knowing that perhaps it didn't go far enough, but wanting so bad for Black people to just have a better chance of survival, she was willing to fight for that. And knowing how challenging that was for her to do and still pushing it is incredible. What I've loved while watching her chair the caucus this term is how important it is to her that everyone has a voice. So even if she disagrees with someone on policy, she wants to make sure that everyone has their moment, has their opportunity to speak, has their opportunity to advocate, has their opportunity to be out front. She truly, she leads like a coach. So she thrives in bringing out the best from her peers and her colleagues, which is a great skill. And yeah, like she has so much class, and she's so ethical. They both are, both extremely hardworking, both ethical, both really, really well respected from members on both sides of the aisle, all up and through and down the party, which is, you know, they got 95,000 ideologies these days, but just like really, really smart and good. And the other thing that I respect about both of them is they've built benches. They are not one and done types of folks. Congressman Rabas in LA created an organization a long time ago called COCO, Community Coalition in South LA. And the people who have come through COCO are dope, you know, like really, really doing amazing things. So I love them both very much, very much. And they both, I mean, the Senate would be blessed to have either of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Angela, what do you say to this notion that, you know, well, two questions that I have here that came up for me as you were talking. You know, number one, you know, I know that the governor has been hearing from people all over the country and is probably like, look, what happens in California needs to be California's business. But what do you say to that, given kind of where we are as a country and the role and the value of the United States Senate in us getting things done over the next 4 years and over, you know, the next 10 years? What do you think is at stake there?
If he really is saying that it's California's business, what I would say back to that is a noise that the culture understands. Right? Like that's ridiculous. If for no other reason, sis, let's look at like somebody like Kelly Loeffler who's running in Georgia. And you think about all the harm that she's caused by saying something like, you know, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. The direct harm you've experienced because of that. That it is a leadership position created for someone, whether they deserve it or not, that results in an international platform. So as much as it may be the business of California because you get who you vote for, it is also, again, especially given the moment we're in, the responsibility of the leader to be sensitive for what this moment is calling for, you know? And I think that means that, you know, God forbid the runoffs don't go well in Georgia. You have to have somebody to balance out that nonsense. Somebody called Purdue and Loeffler Bonnie and Clyde. It was John Ossoff called them Bonnie and Clyde. So if Bonnie and Clyde in there, or Bonnie or Clyde in there, you got to have somebody who, or several somebodies who are unafraid to challenge them on the nonsense that results in death threats, and harm to our community. You cannot do what you think is in your, what is politically expedient, and jeopardize what is necessary for our survival. And I think that that is the type of urgency that this moment, this entire year is calling us to, you know?
That's real. I like how you said that because, you know, there is an opportunity to be expedient, or there is an opportunity to be responsible.
That's it.
And in this particular moment, you know, California has played such an incredible role setting precedent across this nation.
Yeah.
And this is the time when we actually need California to step up and say, we are going to make sure that our state continues to set precedent by keeping a Black woman representing our state in the United States Senate. Help us paint a picture, Angela, because some people are out there and they're watching and they're like, I just don't think this is that big of a deal. And in fact, I will tell you, you know, in the lead up to this conversation, we did get a question from someone. And also for folks who are watching, you can submit your questions and we will answer them. But there was somebody who was like, well, why does it have to be a Black woman? Why can't it just be a Black person? And kind of felt like,
who they want, Willie Brown?
I don't know, child. I think they felt like, you know, why wouldn't we be advocating for a Black man? Or I don't know. So what it made me think about was, how do we make it clear what's at stake if we don't fill this seat with a Black woman? Beyond the representation angle of it, what is at stake if we don't appoint a Black woman to this seat?
Oh, so much. You know what? I was sitting here thinking, because one of the points that you raised is something that I grew up with just from a value system perspective. And that is that, like, it doesn't have to be one of us to the exclusion of the rest of us. But like on the most fundamental levels, there is an Asian woman in the Senate. There's a Latino woman. There is what is Tammy Duckworth? Vietnamese? Two Asian women. I think she's mixed. But either way, she's Vietnamese and I think white, I think. But my point is, we don't have a Black woman. And how crazy is that? I mean, this is really not just on California, it's to the whole country. Like, that is actually morally reprehensible that in this day and age, that's the truth, that we have two Black men in the Senate, one arguably all the time, one some of the time, just when you think about priorities and where it aligns with the community. And you have a whole slew of white folks, you know? And so I don't really want to be in the business of being like, well, y'all all got one, but we don't have one. It's tacky and it's bad. Like, that's whack that we're even in that position to have to do that. But the reality of it is that we cannot afford to not have a Black woman again in the Senate. That should never be our testimony. And going forward, we should have several of everybody. It should look like the face of America. And the final thing I would say is, to the extent that Gavin found himself aligned with the Biden campaign, Black people carried that campaign across the finish line in the primary and in the general. So Black people need some rewards.
We want our due.
You have to, because Alicia, how are we going to continue to turn people out to vote if they always show up and they never get anything for it? It's like, you know, the kids who go to school and they do all their work and they mind their teachers and they eat well for, you know what I mean? They eat what they're supposed to eat at lunch, and then there's no reward. They don't get no sticker. They don't get no cookie.
Not a sticker in.
You act like you didn't want no. I used to live. I would do all the things for a damn sticker, sis. Like, please, can I have my sticker? And so I'm saying, like, we want our stickers and our cookies and the juice boxes.
That's facts, sissy. So
I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I'm like, we earned this. When y'all show up, how we show up proportionally, holla at me. Until then, what are we talking about?
So let me underscore this point, because I think it's an important one. And, you know, at the Black to the Future Action Fund, we have made a commitment not just to support Black people for the sake of supporting Black people, because we know from, you know, Daniel Cameron over here in Kentucky, all the way to Clarence Thomas up here in the Supreme Court. Not everybody who looks like you is for you. And that's just a fact. But let me tell you something else, child. I always think about that meme that shows the last 44 presidents at the time. And it was all old white dudes. Yeah. And then there was one Black man, and it was Barack Obama.
Talking about hope and change.
Talking about hope and change. And, you know, it was important to have the only Black president in that photo. But what it made me think about, even bigger than the symbol of it, was that means that for 300 plus years, old white men have been making the rules about you and me. And the same is true in the House, and the same is true in the Senate. And that is not okay, because when you have people in positions of power who are deciding where money goes and where it doesn't go, who are deciding who gets included and who doesn't get included, if they don't have the experience of what it means to live in the world that they create, child,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to get rules that benefit them. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
So that to me is why we need a Black woman in the seat, but in particular, it's why we need Congressmember Bass or Congressmember Lee, who have a track record of bringing those experiences into the halls of power and shaping legislation with those experiences. That is good for everybody. Everyone. So we do have one question from the audience. Let me jump in here and ask this for you and I. What is our thoughts on this proposition? Governor Newsom appoints Congress member Bass. She finishes Senator Harris's term, and then everybody can run when that term ends. What's your opinion on that?
Well, hell, that's what we've been talking about the whole time, right? Like, it's either going to be Miss Bass or Miss Lee. And no matter what, it's not like he can appoint them for longer than the remainder of her term. That's it. So what we're really talking about here is 2 more years. You know, the Senate seat is a 6-year term, and we're talking about a 2 years remaining. So, yeah. And yeah, I think, let me tell you one concern I have.
Mm-hmm.
If Gavin Newsom appoints Miss Bass, I'm worried that Oakland becomes a white seat unless you're running, Alicia.
Oof. Ooh. Now, how did this become about what I'm doing? Okay,
I just was applying pressure. Who gonna run? Because I think that's important. Like, what we also can't afford to do is lose more Black representation in the House. We just can't. Like, we're just getting to a place where we have demographic representation in the House just now in fucking, oh, sorry, Black Futures Lab, 2020. We can just now see Blackness Matters in the halls of Congress in 2020. Like, let's be for real about that. And so with Miss Bass, there are a ton of Black people who will run. So I'm just saying.
That was
what
important.
What you doing?
That was important to get this Schoolhouse Rock lesson on what appointments mean. It does mean to finish the term.
I just am telling you that you losing sight of what I was talking about.
I heard what you said. And what I will say,
like, what's his name? What's his name? Girl, you know, who's that?
Lenny? Oh, Lenny Williams, baby. That's my song.
That's who you sounded like talking about.
We're moving on. Okay, here's the next question. Next question is, what's at stake for Black voters policy-wise?
Somebody give me a Run Alicia shirt.
If the governor does not appoint a progressive Black woman to fill this Senate seat, what's at stake policy-wise for Black voters? What do you think, Angie?
Oh my God, everything. Let's think about some of what Kamala Harris has done in the Senate. A ton around HBCUs and funding. Black maternal health rates are bananas right now. The death rates for Black babies, and she was legislating around there. They just had a bill that she did in partnership with Congresswoman Alma Adams in the House called a momnibus, which is really a really dope way of packaging several bills that would help to ensure that infant mortality rates go down for Black babies, and also Black maternal death rates go down so we can survive across the board. What else did Kamala do? She ran point on justice and policing. Hopefully Joe Biden will now back the bill.
Back something, child, because all I'm hearing is a commission, and I got feelings about that, because you
already had a commission.
My mentor said commissions and task forces are the places where good ideas go to die.
That I didn't even know that was going to be the end, but that's absolutely the case. Like, you even think about what came out of the Kerner Commission. You know, we have to come back to that. That's a whole nother discussion. But the point is that she was running point on bills that are kitchen table conversations and issues for us because we have family members and loved ones and people in our neighborhoods who are experiencing the very things that she was legislating around. We take that for granted in the House because there are so many more folks, but she literally was it. So when you talk, when you hear her say things like, oh, I'm working on such and such with my brother Cory Booker, it was on her head. How can we lose something when there was already such minimal representation? We cannot afford that. I think we need to be clear about that. Like, who would have been running point on justice and policing? Just Cory Booker. The two of them were on the Judiciary Committee, and and then you think about that too, because they are Democrat, or because, as you said so eloquently yesterday in our conversation that was not before all of you, there's a difference between being liberal and progressive. So just because you have liberal members on the Judiciary Committee, when it comes time for Joe Biden's judiciary appointments, who's going to be asking the black shit?
Okay.
Because Bernie, sometimes he will, sometimes he won't.
Okay. Okay. There's also cannabis.
Oh, yeah.
Cannabis. And I know, lots of people felt like this bill did not go far enough, but you know what? Yes, and there was no bill to start with. So, but who's going to push that legacy forward? Who's going to get involved in the fight to make sure that Rona relief and recovery gets on the Senate floor? Because right now.
Wait, and then that's the other point, AG. When you start talking about Rona relieving who?
Okay.
Because if there wasn't a conversation around our businesses getting the relief they needed and somebody there to push back to say, no, actually, Black businesses have not yet seen dollars to give them the relief they need, all of that. So we have to have somebody asking those questions, and Cory Booker can't do all of that. He shouldn't have to. That's unreasonable.
Correct.
Shout out to Tim Scott for the 3 days out the week he decided he want to ask them questions.
I didn't know we was going there, child. So, Angela, what is it that you think people should do to make their voices heard? I know we have a petition at Black to the Future Action Fund. If you go on our website, black2thefuture.org, you can sign the petition that goes directly to Governor Newsom, asking him to make sure that he appoints a Black woman with our values to this vacancy.
We're not asking you, Governor.
And Angela, what else can people do to make their voices heard? Because
I wish we could take
right. It's not
ourselves, but we don't have the Rona, but it's Rona time. So I wish we could take it up there ourselves. Go knock on the door.
I know.
Be like, message. Wait, so tell me again, you said what do we need to do about what?
Well, what can we do to make our voices heard? So we have a petition going, but what else can people do? What should people do to make sure that the governor hears from them?
Call them, email them. We need to put that up. I don't know his phone number or his email, but we need to put that up. Let's tweet him. Let's tell the First Lady too.
That's a good point, because First Lady Newsom has also said that gender equity is a priority for this state. And, I would like to see that in these appointments, child. If we're talking about gender equity, well, let's go ahead and put a Black woman in the seat that's being vacated by a Black woman. Okay.
That's right. You're saying gender equity that applies across races is what I'm hearing you say.
Facts on facts, sissy.
I appreciate that. And I would like to have a conversation with them. I actually think it would be great, Alicia, given the way you communicate so eloquently on behalf of the people. I would love to see you have a conversation with the governor and the First Lady about this and see what they would say to you.
Well, you know what? If you're watching this right now and you would like to see the same thing, go ahead and tweet the governor, let him know, because my calendar's open.
She got time. She will make time.
I got time for this conversation.
And let me tell you what else y'all got. She got receipts too, y'all. She don't play about receipts. It don't matter how small the thing is. Alicia always has a receipt.
Dewey Decimal Systems, okay?
It's not okay sometimes.
Here's some other questions. What are your thoughts if Newsom chooses another person of color who is not a Black woman? I
I don't want to keep answering this.
And also, what should Black women here in Los Angeles begin to do in case Rep. Bass or Lee is not chosen, versus what strategies to keep them in office if they are chosen?
So I don't like the what if they're not chosen piece. I think what would be in our best interest, honestly, I don't normally believe in strategizing in public, but I think we have no other choice because we are at that time. I really think that we need to make this feel like there is no other option. And I think that we have good ground to stand on, whether we look at what's currently happening within our communities economically, what's happened to our communities because of COVID, what's happened given, I'm not even calling this racial tension. It's like racial injustice, racism, and brutal killings, domestic terrorism on the lives of Black people, right? Like, we really need to make it clear that it is a state of emergency. And it is incumbent upon the governor to choose a Black woman because we can't live without that. We can barely live with that, right? And so how, like, that's a huge setback to us culturally. It's a huge setback to us in so many ways, politically, from a policy making standpoint. We just can't afford not to have that. And every time we begin to find ourselves in a situation where we're not represented, we're going back in time. So then that means we have to once again hit reset and go forward again. It's not okay.
And this is my point. I appreciate that, Angela, because you hit the nail on the head. Number one, you're right. It's not an option. It's not an option. So what would happen if, let's not even get to that point, right? Yeah. The whole point of this conversation is to talk about what needs to happen moving forward. Number two, I'll say this. What we not going to do in 2021 is go backwards.
That's right. We can't afford to.
We just pushed a major boulder up a mountain, okay? Because people was talking about, well, what if Trump gets elected? No, that's not an option. We have to go forwards and not backwards. So that's the energy that I'm coming in with, forward, not backwards. And backwards would be to have a United States Senate with zero representation from a Black woman.
Let me give you this. I just looked this up. I was trying to find, because somebody want to know, I'm going ahead of the question. Somebody want to know when he has to appoint by. He has to appoint by January. But listen to this. This is going to really, that little chart you was talking about with all the presidents and the white faces? You about to be real hot. Listen to this one. Nearly 2,000 Americans have served as United States Senator. As of today, 1,928 of them have been men. Only 57 of them have been women. How many Black women? How many Black? We had Carolyn Mosley Braun, Kamala, and who else?
Out of 2,000. Come on, y'all.
What are we even talking about? And again, I'm going to say this too, AG. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I would be consistent. If it was a Latina woman who left to become VP, I would fully support a Latina woman occupying that seat.
I too, my friend.
Particularly if it was only one. And again, I hope that we never again find ourselves for any of these, these groups we need to be coalescing with, coalition building with, that we never find ourselves in a situation again where it's only one. Do we have any Indigenous women in the Senate?
Not that I'm aware of, Sissy.
I don't think we do. We just got the first 2 Native American women in the House in 2018.
Okay.
The first 2.
Well, we got work to do. Forwards, not backwards.
Girl.
So this decision is going to come up any day now, because Governor Newsom does need to make a decision by January. He needs to make a decision very soon. And word out on the street is that decision is coming any day now. So
we need to talk to him. Let's call him, girl.
Call him up, y'all. Call him up. We're going to drop the numbers in the comments.
The comment here. Let me see. You want me to pull him up? Let me look on the internet real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me see.
We're also waiting to see if you all have any other questions. But in the meantime, please head over to Black, the number 2, thefuture.org and sign our petition to the governor to ensure that he appoints a Black woman to fill former U.S. Senator Kamala Harris's vacant seat, now Vice President-elect. Do we have other questions from
I got the phone number.
I hear that the team is on it and putting it all up in that chat.
Oh, they don't want me to help. Y'all know I'm a staffer at heart. I was ready. The email's not popping up, though. They got an email form. I don't trust the email form. I think that goes to the black hole.
Okay. Angela, let me ask you this. Yeah. What is your vision? Because I see that vision board behind you now. So what is your vision for 2021 as it relates to the United States Senate?
Can I give you all of Congress?
Yeah, come on.
My vision is, you did this handy dandy Black Agenda 2020 through Black to the Future. And I think that I would love to see, I know that I would love to see legislation that was based upon the very minimal baseline needs for Black people. Like, let's be for real. You and I talk about things that are far more radical and scary than what's in that agenda. It's very like, okay, common sense.
Right.
Black people could use $15 an hour.
Right.
Common sense. We done dying at the hands of the police. Right. It's very like, this is doable. So I'd love to see legislation that's aligned with that. And I would love to see the CBC get other members of Congress to pledge to support that, right? Go through their alternative budget process, through appropriations, which again, we know where Barbara Lee serves, and then also through authorizing language. So I would love to see that. I would love to see relief for HBCUs. I think that it would be great if that was really in the next COVID relief package, because HBCUs have been hit so hard, sis. And then I really want to see some efforts around broadband. It's a lot of kids who can't keep up trying to do COVID school because they don't have internet access.
That's right.
So I really want to see that. I want to see parity and equity in real ways, and for us to really push that. Shout out to the Movement for Black Lives. I know they're doing work around the Breathe Act. I think that the CBC also started pushing Jobs and Justice, where I think a lot of the Breathe Act stuff fits. And frankly, so does Black Agenda 2020. Those bills will probably have to be broken up so they can go through committee. And then just like Kamala's Momnibus and Alma Adams' Momnibus, repackaged together at the end to go on the floor. I would love to see that happen. And I think it's doable. It's just about really knowing how the process works and working your folks. And now there are more people who are allies in Congress. You have Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman and Richie Torres and Lauren Underwood was reelected. And of course, Ayanna Pressley and the whole squad. Shout out to the squad. Congresswoman Waters and Barbara Lee and Miss Bass and Joyce Beatty. All the OG squad, right? Like there was a squad before there was a squad. That's them. And Congressman Thompson, who's from Mississippi, but is one of the most progressive members and down for Black folks members I've ever met. So there's so many that are doing great work. So I just hope that we can find more allies and messengers and advocates to move our agenda.
I love that.
I've adopted it.
I love it. Thank you, Angela. So you all go ahead and tweet at Gavin Newsom, and literally that is his handle, at Gavin Newsom. Also go ahead and call the governor's office, 916-445-2841. It's also in the comments. Don't forget to sign the petition. Every signature goes directly to the governor. And Angela, I want to thank you so much for taking out time with us on a Sunday to talk about how we get things done, Sissy, and how we need a Black woman to fill this seat. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your brilliance. Appreciate you and love you.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna do that to you for now. For your brilliance, that's my crown. Oh, I got a crown up here too. You see that?
Oh, that one's for me.
Oh, yeah, this is for you. It says AG for
yeah.
Congress.
Yeah.
You see it? It's right there. AG for Congress.
She's doing a lot right now, y'all. She's doing
Love you.
Yes,
Love you guys.
thank
Shout out to
you.
the whole BFL team. I love y'all. Thank you for everything you do to make life better and easier for Black people all over the world.
Oh, we appreciate you. We love you. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday. Don't forget to sign the petition, black2thefuture.org. And then also, can we get some stuff done, y'all? Let this governor know it ain't a choice. It's what we want. Let's go. Peace out, y'all. Thank you, Ange.
Love you, sis.